This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas.
Good morning, true seekers and true crime junkies. Welcome back to another episode of Hit the Road Jack, Finding the Zodiac. I want to welcome to the show this morning, Nolan Del Campo.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And Terry Battcher.
Hiya, kids. Hiya. As in all God's children, that's what I mean. How I mean it.
And that's everybody.
That's everybody. Everybody.
And I don't know if Harriette has joined us at this point or not, but let me just check. Maybe she has. No, she has not. Oh, goodness. Okay. I wanted to actually start by the fact that I had just recently done a notary job for a company who I hit up asking about payment because they said once I completed and submitted invoice that I would receive payment within 2 to 3 days. And they literally sent me an email that said, print your own check. Print your own check.
Wow.
And it says it doesn't matter if it's blank on the back, like it comes with these instructions. It doesn't matter if it's blank on the back. Just draw a signature line if your mobile deposit doesn't understand. So you literally let's see if we can get up there. I tried to draw the signature line. Either way, this scares me as a document examiner and a fraud expert because they're literally telling people to print their own checks.
That's crazy.
Right. So I'm going to keep the email on hand and the paperwork and the instructions in case my bank comes back and barks at me like, what the heck did you try to deposit? I don't know. I'm printing my own checks these days. Silly. Ridiculous, actually. Calling in at 10 a.m.
More pervasive than you know.
Right?
I'm here just in case.
Oh, yay!
For me. I'm here.
Good.
Good morning, Harriette. Yes, I was looking for you. All right. I just got done talking about my whole print. What's that?
I was going to say I was looking for the link because I got a new phone. So I missed something that you may have sent me. Anyways, I'm here.
Good. Okay, great. I was just talking about my new check making career.
Okay.
Anyways, we're going to flop over to the presentation and where we left off last week. Let's see here. Oops. We were actually covering the car that Nora owned and looking at that. We were also looking at the descriptions that have been given. So at Lake Berryessa, teenagers witnessed what they thought was an ice blue or a light blue older Chevy vehicle, though I did not find anywhere that I guess they do say an ice blue 2-door Chevy Impala. And of course, this had the creeper that was running around staring at the girls from the sidelines on the beach, which I still have questions as to whether or not this person was even actively involved with the events that took place that day. Simply because he made himself so noticeable. And I just don't think that that's what the Zodiac would have done. I don't think he would have been cruising and prowling around so that a bunch of people could witness and see him. So sometimes I like to put that one out of my head. But then I saw in Robert Graysmith's letters that the suspect had indicated that he had actually been driving a 4-door ice blue Chevy Impala. Now, again, this could just be, the suspect's way of, steering you in the wrong direction. But I think that most people who would eyewitness a vehicle would know whether or not it had 2 or 4 doors on it. What's that?
That one right there in the picture is undoubtedly a Biscayne because there should be a trim strip if that were an Impala.
Yeah. I've not gotten to that yet.
Sorry.
I have gotten to that many times, but you tried to tell me I was wrong.
No, I didn't. I just tried to identify it.
Now the other, well, and I already had the other description was given by Kathleen Johns that stated it was a late model American make with a light colored two-door with black bucket seats between, which was a sporty console style automatic transmission gear shift. Now it doesn't indicate the color, just says light color. It does call for the two-door, which was in something that was eyewitnessed. But again, we don't know if this is the same car that they've seen at Lake Berryessa. I'm just stating that this is what Kathleen Johns got into during her abduction from what she said was the Zodiac Killer. So I had done some lengthy research quite some time ago, and I picked apart the title where Nora had purchased this 1964 Chevy Biscayne in December of 1971. And that's something that we are just now climbing into 1972 because we see the picture of Jack and her in front of this vehicle at Stevens Creek, which does allow us to know that Jack is dating Nora while he is still in the Bay Area, and she is currently living in South Lake Tahoe based on this registration and title. So he is back and forth between these two locations at this point. My whole point for looking and finding this vehicle was to figure out whether or not it was in fact what Dennis thought it was. He thought it was that ice blue Chevy Impala. And it turns out, like Terry B had said, we were able to break down everything on the title to show that this was a 1964 Chevy Biscayne. The ice blue Chevy was not Jack's. Well, unless Jack sold it to her. There's still a possibility that she purchased this vehicle from Jack. On to the next one, kind of just gave you a little breakdown. I did put
Maybe
up
that's how they met.
Over the car. Well, they supposedly met at South Lake Tahoe Linen Company. So he became a mechanic there for their trucks. And I'm not sure what her position or role was there. I don't know. Did Dennis ever say what Nora did there, Harriette?
No, but I'm trying to remember. What did he say? How they met? All I know is the first time. I mean, we've heard the story. He wanted to punch his lights out when he was only 4 or 5 years old. So
yeah, we're going to get to that. Oh,
sure.
I think we've already covered that one in 1971. But so anyways, this shows that Model 11 is a Biscayne 1100 series, a 6-cylinder. Now, the other 11 says that it's a 2-door sedan. So now I'm a little confused. Let's go back. I can't make out the doors behind them, so I'm not quite sure how many doors this vehicle actually has, but the body style of it is consistent with the Biscayne, correct, Terry?
Yes.
I found that all the trim and all the side panels and all of that stuff was pretty much a match visually. So if this is now we are back to what appears to be not a 4-door, but a 2-door ice blue Chevy. Now, they could have gotten the make wrong. If you were 3 teenage females, I highly doubt you would know what an Impala was, at least back in that day, how many females were very familiar with cars. It is a 2-door. The last 6 symbols were the production sequence, and it was made in Los Angeles, California. So that's the breakdown on the VIN number of this particular vehicle. I did.
Oh, Los Angeles. Okay, sorry.
Most of the Impalas from that era were 2-door, but that one looks a 4-door. That looks like a little older.
Well, that's a Biscayne. So that's the 1964 Biscayne without somebody obstructing the view. Doesn't mean, but we saw here that there is an actual 4-door, and it would have been listed as a number 19 on the title. So where it says 11 equals a 2-door sedan, we have an 1111 in this number. So 1111 means that it was a 2-door, and then the 19 would have been a 4-door, and there is not a 19. Or a 39. So it looks like our options for 4-doors were 19, 35, and 39, and that is not the sequence that's found inside of this VIN number. So we are looking at a 2-door ice blue Chevy. You guys, Dennis was right to some degree. You just had the model wrong. So the 1970, I wrote down here, was owned by Nora Kaufman. Well, I don't know about this. He was only 6 at the time, so not a terrible mistake to make since Jack and Nora were together when she bought it. Either way, I do not have any information that they had access to such a car previous to 1971, so I don't know when this car came into play for these people. However, it is something that Dennis remembered and thought that he would bring up. The taillights are not as described by the youths. They are long, going back and forth. The teens at Lake Berryessa had indicated that the taillights were long, going downward rather than round. Nor is the back window tinted quite dark, which I think is another thing that the teenagers stated that they had witnessed of the Chevy that was seen in Lake Berryessa, is that it had a dark tinted rear window. And I can see the light going right through the windshield right here on this car. So that tells me that's not tinted dark. This gave me some other ideas or options for vehicles that I was looking at. The Chevy Impala obviously also had the circular taillights. The one I did find actually had the long taillights, which is the Chevy Biscayne, but that shows in 1967. So I'm not quite sure that style was available or able to see what's on the back end of Nora's car to tell whether or not she had the long ones or the short ones. But the Biscayne also carried the long ones as well as the circular ones. Let's see. That brings us to your 7-11. We talked a little bit about this 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, in regards to the Elvis Presley and the Viva Las Vegas song reference, because we see that D.B. Cooper wrote a letter that he states Viva Las Vegas. We know that there's another letter out there that was written to Elvis Presley as being next with a list of celebrities who were going to get it. Do you remember if that was 1962 or 67, Harriette?
I think that's 1962.
Right. Yeah. That was when Marilyn Monroe died, right?
I haven't done that one either, so I need to do that one. I haven't done it, but I believe it's 62.
What, Viva Las Vegas, the movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
There was a postcard mailed, which is very cryptic, like the Zodiac, and it was mailed to President Elvis Presley, claiming that he was going to get a mass amount of celebrities next. And of course, we then have D.B. Cooper writing saying Viva Las Vegas. And so there was this 7-11 hit, because the 7-11 is a phrase, Terry said, inside the song Viva Las Vegas by Elvis Presley. So you can see all the little connections going back around. Do you want me to read what you wrote in the email?
Yeah, you're a better reader than I am. I think so.
It says, why? Because most people don't understand the true definition of the word theory, and they misuse the term repeatedly. For instances, in the Ramsey murder case, there never was any evidence to support the notion that a Ramsey family member did the damage. And the evidence is ample that it was a premeditated and vicious murder via the fanciful murder note. Einstein's theory of general relativity. Einstein himself wasn't happy with that publication. He felt that his explanations for the mechanics of gravity was incomplete. Math work supports his writings about gravity, but basic mechanical explanations fall very short. The 7-11 observations are simply that. They're a grouping of observations, albeit a group of some very uncanny observations. The idea is spurred by things like paradise, which is spelled incorrectly, slaves, dice, and the game of craps is the origin. So 7-11 means that anytime after the first roll, when a shooter has a point to make, you win with a bet on the come line with a roll of a natural 7 or 11 and lose on craps 2, 3, or 12. May 23, 2017, hence gambling. Jack clearly made repeated references to the number 11. So let's walk us through these particular communications. Now, you stated that you found the 7-11 in the D.B. Cooper crime note that said, "The perfect crime, grant me amnesty."
Right. Well,
So
the 11s jump out at you. They're actual 11s in the word will. They're one.
Yes, we can see
So-
that. I
so that's-
actually just saw a font today that proposed an L just like that with that upper point, which does more or less express a 1 versus an L. But it was interesting that it just happened this morning that I saw that font and I saw that particular use. So you're saying that this is the 11, and then where is our 7?
Well, your 7's going to, the letter, let me see, a little chart here. The G is the 7th letter of the alphabet. Notice its relative size, how big it is compared to the other things. Matter of fact, that's the whole theme with the cryptics of it, is that size matters with Zodiac Jack, apparently. And so you've got a 7 there, and you have an 11 on the next line below. Clearly an 11. But affirmation of this comes to the document that's on the right, with the 7 come 11. Why so many 11s, and why do you make them all? I mean, why do you make all these elves look like 11 besides his obsession with the words kill and shall and will and things like that, which he went overboard on. And there are in fact 7. He's killed 7 people. Oh, okay, good for you. You've killed 7 people. And he's got that pronounced as a 7. And then he's got all these 11s. I thought, well, I wonder if there's 7 of them. Sure enough, there are. So what's that mean? It's just an observation at this point. But when you start looking around at all of his documents, including I discovered this morning on the Ramsey murder note, there are 10 11s that come in the form of the word will, but there's actually 3 of them where the 11s in them don't look like 11s. They look more like L's, or they're convoluted. So there's, of course, 10 minus 3 is 7. So, I'm just saying it's an observation, and there's more examples of this. It's like another thing I discovered.
Here's some more.
Go ahead.
Here you did it again.
Okay. Right, and then the knot modifications are another thing we can talk about on another day. But that's what I did was, okay, did he do another 7-11 int? Well, I do the math, and it looks like he did, yes. And there's a repeat of the other one we saw. And then, of course, there's the debut of the Zodiac speaking documents. And when I made these documents, I was pointing out the large letter K. That was my fixation at that point in time. But again, 7-11.
So on this particular one right here, which is the annihilating a full school bus letter and the map coupled with this code, you found that it had -12. So he's claiming 12 victims, and it had 5 11s. So you take away 5 from the 12 and you've got what?
7.
7.
Right. So 5 each 11s noted, -12. 12 minus 5 is 7. A 7, 11 hint once again with paradise slaves hint once again.
With question marks. I'm saying, what do you and other people think of this? I'm not saying these things as hard statements or theories. I'm just saying these are merely observations, simple observations too, just really rudimentary.
And then in this other one, which is the 3-page letter written to the law enforcement to tell them that they had it all wrong and that he wasn't a cheat when he was hunting and that he did it the sportsman way. Basically, you found 7 each of those 11s again. Now, does that account for all 3 pages, or is that just on this first page that you were calculating that out?
Only off the first page. I only worked that first page.
So you've got 7 again of 11. Then you took us into the anthrax letters, which you had shown once again the use of the 11s, which were done in both the address and zip code of 2 of them that were written to the media, one to the New York Post, one to Tom Brokaw of NBC TV, and then the other 2 that were written to Senator Leary and Senator Daschle had the G's in it, which is where you said the 7s were. So that 7, 11 is really kind of the way you've put that together.
There's a lot to say about that page, but for example, missing from it is whatever was in the address box of the one to the editor and Tom Brokaw. I believe all of these had one form of anthrax in the envelope or another, I think was
correct.
What they came to realize. So, but is a fixation with the 11s again, once again, and there's another document, I didn't include it, but I didn't realize there's another document, that one called Peachtree, where you can, if you lay them next to each other, you say, hey, this Peachtree document, and these are done by the same person. I mean, to the naked, untrained eye, even it's obvious. But anyway, I digress. I'm saying that's what I found. That's what I pointed to. It's merely an observation. But then again,
it's an observation that you actually have had, that many people have had. I remembered in 2001 when the events took place, the Twin Towers had been ran into. Then a week later, we saw the anthrax letters that were mailed. I remember hearing people speaking saying that the Zodiac wrote them. And I thought these people were nuts. Mm-hmm. I was like, he was a serial killer from 1968, 1969. Why are you people saying he's responsible for these anthrax letters? You guys are just dumb is what I thought. But lo and behold, after I got done completing the examinations and reading the linguistics and going over everything, I thought to myself exactly what you thought, Terry. I'm like, this is coming from the same person, and many people had already recognized this.
Well, you have an advantage over me because when 911 went down, I want to hear it too. When 911 went down, I didn't hear that about the Zodiac Killer comparison or whatever. See, a little better news service where you're at, or apparently, but
it wasn't a news service. This was people talking. This was just I was hearing conversations about it.
Somebody was on the ball. Somebody was getting it. You know.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Nolan.
That letter on the right, I'm not familiar with that. Is that attributed to Zodiac? I mean, signed Zodiac, but the writing is so different, and just the style and everything is different.
I think this one goes to the Peachtree, does it not, Terry B? I think this is the Atlanta, Georgia child killer letter where he's killing.
I think you're probably correct on that, but I'm not positive. I can't say that with perfect certainty today. I believe so.
We haven't gotten it to
Rebels. We have to go back and review it. The Rebels, that's another little subject that we went off into at the time. I remember.
And we have a connectivity to a picture that was found in Jack's belongings that looks like it's the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. And we show that ball cap, what looks to be next to an ominous pool of what might be blood, but it's definitely some type of a yucky substance that didn't dry up and go away. Very strange picture that was taken. And I'm not sure the time frame of that picture having been taken, but I want to say that this is somewhere in the 1980s. So I think that they might be very close in time with what's going on. But you also found, you found 11 hints here. Did you find any 7 hints?
Whatever I wrote on there, that's what I found out about that. I just, I didn't do a lot of analysis of this particular letter. I thought it would be kind of overdoing it because it's just an observation, but you do have that. Look at how large that L's are and hello, it's me. One little footnote, what the term hello, it's me reminds me of that era was a Todd Rundgren song that started out with
hello,
it's me. Remember that?
So you're making another reference to media, news, music.
To a song, yeah.
Right. Yeah, we'll cover that when we get to those. I was really just more interested in these 7-11 so that we can move past these. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Harriet, before I move on?
Oh, I'm just that all those number ones. I think that there's also references or the possibilities of binary code, which would also be more code within code. I'm trying to because. Some of the Kennedy era bills were looking like they were in binary code, several ones. So, it's just, that's my observation. I'm thinking all those ones and zeros and he's screaming something else. It's like dig deeper. You're going to probably find more, just like Terry B is finding. So that's just my comment.
Well, and that moves us on to the actual Peachtree envelope that I believe went with that letter. And of course, the 1611 again. And you don't just think that this is a possibility that it happens to be the mailing address. And that's just what he tended to use in this particular.
That address was to an art institute. I looked it up at one time. That's on Peachtree Street. And it was an actual, and as I pointed out, it actually doesn't.
I think that is the current, right? It is currently an art studio.
Well, whatever it was at the time I looked up, I didn't do any research as of how far that went back, but yeah, it was for an art institute.
So then that's taking us into an era we haven't even visited. We haven't visited this. I'm really just trying to stick with the 7-11 rather than trying to explain the origin of the document.
I think there's a 911 flipped over there is what I'm saying. That's
right.
The impetus for his document. He flipped a 911 over on the thing. But yeah, keep going with what you want to do. That's cool.
Well, Okay, so you had indicated that since it was mailed in Georgia, the G
Right.
obviously being the 7 and then the 11 being
7.
in the actual address.
Yep.
And then, of course, that JT initial clue that we see in the word
Yep.
street that doesn't really quite look like
Yep.
an S as much as it should. And
Yep.
then you moved into the Goldman Sachs. Now, I still don't have any origin for this letter. I've not completed an examination on this letter, but you were stating that it has these upside down ones in it for a 7-Eleven type reference. But again, I don't know where this letter, does anybody know where this letter came from, who it went to? I mean, obviously Goldman Sachs, right? But does anybody, Harriet, do you have any information on this letter?
No, I would have to see it, but
it's the one on pink paper.
Communications.
It's the one on pink paper that said Goldman Sachs, hundreds will die. We are inside. You cannot stop us.
Yeah, I
haven't done that one, but he's probably dealing with predicting, like I've seen already. That
this is what I'm saying. Before we say he, before we say he and he did or this is, I've not made that connection yet. So we can't say that this is from him. I just found it interesting that Terry also found that there was a 7-Eleven part on this. Now the upside down ones, I mean, clearly this is being written with speed. I look at this letter and this is being written naturally. And a lot of it is not consistent with what I've seen Jack do. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Either way, that tick mark that comes up from the bottom would be what we call a fine and subtle trait in handwriting analysis. And when you see these types of little tick marks or extracurricular pieces of ink, it indicates that the person is moving fast because they are not lifting their pen at the proper point. They just are kind of carrying on from one area to the next, and that leaves that little extra stroke at the bottom. Now, if this was a little more drawn like the Ramsey letter, I would say that might be something he was attempting to mimic on purpose, but here it looks just more like it is natural writing with speed.
Well, I just ran with this with what I saw and don't claim that it is or isn't. But the first thing that caught my attention was the shape of the letter D, because one of the D's on the ransom note looks like that, where it's like, I call it the hands of the clock of the letter D on the last page. The other thing is look at the way he made.
Well, I'm not looking to analyze this letter. I'm just covering it.
Look-see, that's all.
Right. It does. And I don't know when the era is for this, but I think it's much further, in the 80s or something like that. Right. And then we also had the From Your Secret Pal, can't guess who I am yet. Well, look inside and you'll find out. Now, in this one, you had indicated, now I'm not sure what the Goldman Sachs has to do with this, but you had written on here the 2001 you wrote 2001 Goldman Sachs, you cannot stop us, we are inside. So your assumption is that this particular letter was written in 2001?
Right, after 911. That's where it's in with the 911 letter documents that everybody looks at and looks into 911. It's one of those documents. I don't think anyone besides us has said, gee, is this a Jack document? As far as I know, anyway, it's a Jack document. But there were things about it that I thought, well, I'm not the handwriting expert, so that's your bailiwick. And that you say whatever it is, and
no, I don't. I'm just saying I haven't done an examination. I don't know the origin. I don't know who it was mailed to, where it was mailed from. There's really no information other than this short message to be able to go off of. And again, there are lots of things about this particular communication that are not consistent with Jack's writing. However, and again, like I said, it looks like it's written with fluidity and speed. I say that when you look at the word R, he didn't quite form the R as a normal R. It almost looks like an N instead of an R. So that person is not really caring about what it looks like and just executing, I'm thinking, in a quick manner. So that is our 7-Eleven. Brought us back to Colby Cheese. Now, did you bring up somebody in one of your solves named Colby, Harriet?
No.
I was trying to figure out, where did we come up with the Colby hint?
Well, you got Colby from the victim.
But I can't find that victim in my display now.
Oh, you got it from the gal that was went to school in Colby, Wisconsin,
Oleg.
and then
Oleg.
was murdered in California.
Oh, Oleg. Okay.
Oleg, right? Oleg, right?
And you don't believe that Oleg is a Zodiac victim?
I'm not sure either way. I don't want you.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think that's just.
She was on Grace Smith's list as a Zodiac victim, and then it's disappeared. I haven't done that one yet, so I got to try to. There's a lot of things on my to-do list coming up for summer. Should I still be here?
Yeah.
But
well, and it kind of crosses
for like 30 years a Zodiac victim, and then suddenly the last 10 years, it's anyways.
And if she's from Colby, if there was any truth to the Monterey or the cheese letter, which always makes us
yes.
He talked about Monterey, Colby Jack, pepper jack. I don't know. He had a few cheeses inside that letter.
Yes.
So there,
the cheese letter.
That kind of points back to him, though, doesn't it?
Do you have a copy of the cheese letter, Harriette? Did you ever find that?
No, and I know you said that yours disappeared, but I'm so thankful that I did find the structure of it from one of our. No, I didn't. I never found the copy of it that you sent me, and it's disappeared. But the most important thing is I got the structure of it. That was so important. Where the commas were and where the dots were. Somebody did that at Dennis's old message board. I think the poster was rocker, and
it might have been there that it was because that's when they were messing with us.
Yeah, then everything disappeared a week after I did that. This was a few years ago, but anyway, so no, but I kept on asking you, Nanette, where is it? Where do you have it? And then I think you tried to find it and said everything's disappeared.
Right. Well, and it may have just been that the computer I was using at the time when I obtained it was crashed by all of my searches because they like to penetrate you with all kinds of viruses when you're researching these cases.
Yeah, there's stuff missing on your own MB that I put on there that's gone now. So
right. Somebody's manipulating something. All right. Well, that brings us on to our next murder, which is July of 1972. We have a 20 to 25-year-old Star Valley Jane Doe. Now, Star being one of the things that they tried to con us with in ruse of the cheese letter was that it looks to me like J Tar, which would be a simple hit for Jack to say Jack Terrence, because that J again is written like an S rather than a J, but it is I dotted at the top, so you can tell that makes it a J, not an S. So we have this star reference to this purported flap that was on, what was that, the Halloween card? Was supposed to have the J Tar or the star, and then that became Robert Graysmith's pseudonym for this suspect, which was Bob Starr, right?
Yes.
Spelled the same way with two R's. So many coincidences going on here. Unless somebody's manipulating things on purpose, I don't know that we should see things matching up this great. At any rate, it says that Star Valley, Nevada, near Dennis Flats Road, coincidence, partially decomposed body found northeast of Nevada, about 50 miles from the Utah border, approximately 8 miles south of Interstate 80. This is another one of those remote locations that somebody would have to be familiar with. We have a white female with reddish blonde hair who had been shot in the left cheek and in the neck by a .22 caliber weapon. We know .22 caliber being Jack's favorite and Zodiac's favorite. She was 5 foot 2 inches tall and weighing about 110 pounds. The identifying marks are a scar on the outside of her right knee and an appendectomy scar on her abdomen. She was nude and she had been posed in a position which looked like a cross. So posing of the bodies is something that we've seen in many of these crimes. So I wanted to research the maps for Jack's South Lake Tahoe home and see how close he was to whatever was going on here. We also have on July 26, 1972, Lynn Derrick in San Francisco. I don't have a lot of information on her. I was only able to find the date and the name. In 1972, one of the pictures we do have from Nora's and Jack's belonging is a picture of Claire. Nora's writing is on the back of this particular photograph. She is in the Tahoe area, and this is the first introduction of Nora into Jack's belongings, but I still see no sign of Jack yet. We're going to get to that. On September 3rd of 1972, we had Alexandra Cleary in Oakland, 18 days before the autumnal equinox. She was beaten to death and nude, and that is actually on the murder map for Sandy Betts.
Who is Claire?
Claire, I believe, is either a relative of Nora's, or I want to say a relative of Nora's, because we see her in subsequent pictures throughout. Okay. Do you know who Claire is, Harriette?
Not offhand, no.
Yeah,
because Dennis didn't talk too much about his family. I mean, he on his own time he did, but
you
it was very
guys,
emotional to talk about. Yeah, to talk about his mother's family, that was very emotional for him.
I got a shout out on 3 different videos from Garrett, which is Gary, which was Jack's nephew. So I reached out to him this last week, offered to speak with him. I've not heard back yet. He did text me back and forth a couple times and said he'd hit me up during the week. I don't know if he was just trying to make his presence known rather than wanting to actually get involved and speak to me, but he was confirming a lot of things, such as his belief that Jack was the Zodiac and that he was his nephew. Or that Garrett was his nephew. So I'm interested in seeing or hearing what it is that this guy can tell us or assist us with throughout this program. So Star Valley, we kind of
I'd like to have his input.
Right? The drive using the last body in Star Valley to map the trip down I-80 yields only a 35-hour drive to New York, which is the crime surrounding this Jane Doe's death. This would have been nothing since Jack is an avid user of methamphetamines during this time frame. So driving 35 hours would not be a thing for him at all, or not be a thing for him at all. And that leads us back to the final victim in the DC Freeway Phantom. So as I said, he moves in, he commits some murders, he takes a break, he comes back, he commits one last one to make it appear as though that killer is still operating in DC when he's off into another location. That at least is my theory. So we have September 5th of 1972, Diane Williams on I-295 in Baltimore, Washington Parkway. She's strangled, probably half nude. DC Freeway Phantom goes silent forever. We never hear anything more about these type of murders. Then we have a San Francisco Chronicle, November 14th of 1972. The Zodiac linked to the 1963 slayings. Santa Barbara, the 1963 rifle slaying of 2 Lompoc High School students may have been the work of the long-sought Zodiac Killer, Santa Barbara County Sheriff John W. Carpenter said here yesterday. Carpenter told a news conference there is considerable evidence that Zodiac, the name given to a person who boasted of a score of murders and letters to the Chronicle, was responsible for the killing Linda Edwards, 17, and Robert Dominguez, 18. The 2 teenagers, shot many times by a .22 caliber rifle, were found dead in a beach shack near Lompoc the day before their graduation 9 years ago. Sheriff's speculation about similarities with the Zodiac killings followed reports that his deputies have been checking with authorities in San Francisco and other areas where the mysterious killer operated. And other areas. Here's the key word, guys. This is what we've been saying this entire time. Zodiac didn't wake up one day, attempt to kill 7 people, write, I don't know, a couple hundred freaking communications, and then decide to fall off the face of the earth and never have done it again. So, let's see here. The sheriff's speculation about similarities, checking with authorities. We now have information that may place Zodiac in the Santa Barbara area during the period in question, Carpenter said. The sheriff said there are other links to Zodiac, which I am not at liberty to disclose at this time. In the attack on the Santa Barbara teenagers, the girl was stripped of her bathing suit and assaulted. The girl was then shot, and her body was piled on top of the slain youth. So we have this body stacking thing that's going on, and we've seen this in some of the crimes already, and we have some more crimes that are coming up where body stacking occurred as well. And I think this is when they when the suspect attempts to burn them. He thinks it's easier, I think, to stack them, attempt to start a fire, because we know with the Dominguez and Edwards murder that he attempted to light the shack on fire in which they were placed, but that fire did not take, and thus they did not burn. Let's see. The 2 bodies were dragged to the grass-covered beach shack which was set afire, the sheriff said. But that fire didn't take.
Yeah. There's a Zodiac book that I loaned you. It's actually a trilogy. And they definitely believe that Zodiac was behind the Dominguez and Edwards killings.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
Dominguez's dad had money or a ranch or something too. Had some money, didn't he? Seems to me that was part of the story.
I do not know their backgrounds. Have
Yeah,
you seen anything in your solves that says that he, Harriet, have you seen anything in your solves that says he took advantage or that he committed these murders?
Not for the Dominguez people, but I think, God, it's been years ago, that they're somehow connected to the stickers, the Valentine's.
I thought that was the Swindles.
God,
because the Swindles had the Valentine's Day candy.
Yeah, I think that they're somehow linked to the Swindles. So, and maybe so that's where my weird.
They're in the same.
Yeah,
they're in the same era, right? I think the Swindles were 64 or 62, and then Dominguez is 63. So right there in the same area, around the same time frame, with the same thing on open water. Couples enjoying themselves, shot by a 22.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, now
I think they're connected.
I have this next one down not listed as a Zodiac killing because Philip Hughes confessed and was convicted of the murder of Maureen Patricia Field. What does your information say about her?
I don't have anything on that, so that's probably correct that it's not a Jack or Zodiac kill.
Okay. So there was some coincidences. I think literally it was the suspect called the family. I'm calling about your daughter. She is dead. I killed her. Unless she had a phone book or the person personally knew her, how would they know to call the family?
Yeah.
It is interesting that she was found near Mount Diablo, though, and that's Jack's centerpieces.
Yes, it is. And possibly, again, maybe that's why he was pointing to Mount Diablo and his stuff so that they would find these bodies that other people were committing the murders of. It really kind of takes me back to that movie Suspect Zero, where the agent, who is basically the remote viewer of these serial killers, their crimes, their deeds, where they could be found, and he shows up to do them in. So very interesting take, because it's kind of like what Harriet's saying with the little list and him having this list of people that he's supposed to show up and take care of because they've done bad deeds. Kind of similar in some ways. So I'm not even going to read this. It is on the murder map. So I did find that there was some coincidence to that. Again, maybe just alluding to a group of people who are involved, and the Zodiac is not necessarily just bragging about something he's done rather than getting the information out as to who's responsible for it. That brings us to November 21st, 1972. 13-year-old Lori Lee Cursa vanished from the Santa Rosa market. So this is another one of those Santa Rosa hitchhiker murders. Body was found December 14th, 1972, down a steep embankment off of Calistoga Road. The 8th grader had run away from home with the previous month. Had not been sexually assaulted. A witness reported that he had seen two men a few miles down Calistoga Road from where Lori's body was found, rushing a girl matching Lori's description into a white van with a Caucasian man with bushy hair waiting in the driver's seat. The autopsy concluded that Lori died about a week before she was found, and her body was found a few miles southeast of where Kim Allen had been found. This means that Lori had possibly been kept previous to her death. Clothing, purse, and one earring was missing. Steel loops were still in her ears, but her earrings had been removed. Found, and I don't understand that statement. If their steel loops were still in her ears, but her earrings had been removed, I'm not sure what we were looking for there. And I'm kind of looking at them as these little teardrop things, at least in this picture that's being shown. She was found nude and her neck was broken. It is listed on the murder map by Betts. You have any information on Cursa?
Oh, I definitely have. In the book that you might be eventually reading from again, it's America's Most Evil. I mean, I have so much decoded evidence that keeps on bringing up about Lori Lee Cursa. So
let me step us back real quick, because we just talked about a white van, and what I noticed in the picture of the Chevy with Nora, there are two vehicles there. Now, I don't know if they had to meet up, but if you look just behind this blue Chevy, there is a white van.
White one, yeah.
white, cream colored,
Well,
I mean,
Yeah,
what does it
it's
look
light
like?
colored.
And it's light colored. It is definitely a van parked right next to Nora's car. So I'm just saying that's a little bit coincidental that's what they're reporting. And a bushy haired man, because we know Jack, when he doesn't cut his hair, he gets bushy.
Oh, it's not Jack. It's not Jack.
Who is it? Who is it saying that it is?
It's. Shall I read the evidence real quick that I came up with?
Not the evidence. Just read us the solve, because we've only got about 5 minutes.
This is Lori Lee Cursa. Evidence and clues decoded on March 24th, 2022. FBI - Bobby the Cook, witness, November 20th, 1972, 95409, that's the zip code. 2 men, meat cutter Ronald Bruce Cursa, that is her father, and mother's boyfriend, force Lori Lee Cursa into van park, Lorraine Way, see father hog tie in back with rope, then 94558, Narlo, that's Kenny Narlo, the sheriff deputy. Anyways, fornicate with her, Ken gave CIA operative Walsh blowjob, each overdose with real true Roma cocaine, soon speeding Ford driver John Edward Walsh Jr. crash 95409, Lori Lee broke neck, DOA, but 2 EMT resuscitate, can dump Cursa 1:07 a.m. in the Ursuline student area, rural Southwest Harville Road, Santa Rosa, California area, died of exposure by December 12/14/72, and it's really sad. It's saying that.
But what do you mean died of exposure? Why the broken neck?
What was that?
But it states that she had a broken neck, but your solve says that she died of exposure.
Yeah.
Maybe the broken neck didn't kill her.
She had a broken neck. She died of exposure. They tossed her like garbage into that area.
Oh, so she was still alive with the broken neck, basically, and died from exposure.
Yeah, and then died of exposure. And this is the one I cried over, because I'm only 4 days younger than this girl, so I'm everything this girl could have grew up to be.
Abducted on November 21st. Her body is found December 14th on 1972. She had been known to hitchhike and was a habitual runaway. So very little is known about her last days.
She was not a habitual runaway. I got so much information on her. Her parents were really, really bad. And anyways, that's what the solve came up with. And I got so many more solves that are involving her name.
So that'd be
I wish I could see her earrings better in this picture, because it looks like a definite teardrop that's off of the right ear. And then when we get into some of Jack's belongings, these were odd earrings, only one of each, that were found in the tackle box, which Dennis found, should I say, the pilot pen, which is the blue ink pen used to execute the Zodiac letters. It had pieces of rope about 2 to 3 feet long, I would say, that were pre-cut pieces of cord that was inside of there, just like we've heard about Charles stating that his father carried these pieces of rope in the rear of his trunk, and there wasn't really anything you could tie it down for and use it for other than obviously tying someone up. So these are especially strange personal effects for Jack to have in that same green metal tackle box. Sonoma County, I believe, had 4 killings where something was taken. Earrings looking like that's one of them. Bringing me to the Sonoma County Sheriff's Department. They are in possession of a palm print from Jack that they have been waiting for 9 years to compare to the palm print in SFPD's possession, but SFPD has denied this opportunity. So it says contact Deborah Silva of the Santa Rosa Hitchhiker Murders.com. And if you have any information in regards to this case, the URL is found here on my presentation. We are down to the last minute at this point, so I'm going to stop here before climbing into Christmas of 1972. I want to thank you guys all for being, yes, go ahead.
Is that the ones you got to solve off? Those are Zodiac Jack documents that you decoded, Harriet?
No, the solves are the evidence. The solve is the evidence in the case. So she's taking.
No, but I mean, she got the documents that she decoded. Who was the source?
She just took the evidence.
It's the evidence that's relayed in newspapers. I've got copies of the newspapers and all the. It's just amazing. It's like it was so strange, over and over and over again.
All right, you guys. We're all right. I thought it was going to be. I'm Terry. We're done. I said we had 1 minute. I told you I was just trying to off this and say goodbye for the day. We can pick. We said it. She selectively chose her evidence from the evidence that was put in the newspapers. She took those and she anagrammed it.
Oh,
yeah, it was amazing. So rest in peace.
All right, you guys.
That is my note.
Right. All right, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Nolan, Terry, Harriet, everybody have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Friday.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Oh,